1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, Student Life. Welcome back to Couch Convos No Filter. We are here with a very special episode today about something that we all deal with. We have an awesome guest with us, Miss Yolanda. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're excited that you're here. But she's going to tell us a little bit about this topic, and we'll get into what that topic is in just a moment. But first, I want to just hear a little bit about you. So tell our students, if they don't know you, maybe they do know you, and you just want to tell them a little bit more. Who is Miss Yolanda?
Who is Miss Yolanda? Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on today. I am so excited to be here and have some fun to chit-chat with you and to share a little bit of my heart with the students. So Miss Yolanda is, she is a children's ministry director here at Liberty Church, which she loves. I grew up in New Jersey, so I'm a Jersey girl. I've always loved children. I've always been in ministry. I was a child growing up in ministry, so I always enjoyed it. So to be here right now doing children's ministry, it's like marrying the two loves that I have for children and for ministry. From a child, it was just in me to do so. But I grew up just like any other kid, running the streets, playing, doing stuff. My family, we're more made up of a male-dominant syndicate, I call us. So I learned to play football, soccer. I also did jump rope and a few other things, but yeah, I know what it is to just have fun and be a kid, which is what I love. And now I marry that with what I do. Still have fun with the kids.
That's awesome. And, Sam and I in the youth ministry side of things, we, work with you on some different events and stuff like that.
Yes.
And, we love having you here. And I know a lot of our students too, maybe some of you watching this, volunteer in Kids Life and work with the kids, and you have direct contact with them. So that's awesome. Well, today we're going to be talking about something that I think a lot of our students deal with. But I wanted to bring you in on this because I think even at young ages, we see this thing happening. And we're going to be talking about bullying. Okay. So you guys may have experienced bullying maybe for your faith or something about your appearance or your level of education, right? In quotes, but so many different ways that people might bully or poke fun.
Right.
But we even see it at the young ages, right? Like elementary school, even younger. And so we're going to talk a little bit about bullying, our experience with bullying, how we approach it as Christians, how we deal with it. So in your life, what have you experienced? How have you experienced or seen in your own life or around you? Have you experienced bullying?
Yeah, you're so, the topic you're talking about is so true and relevant today. It's like, I'm older than you. So growing up, we saw it. And to just even now be, decades later, still seeing it is just kind of like mind boggling sometimes. But it happens. And when you really understand bullying and understand where it comes from or where it stems from, then you kind of understand like, it's just something that is just there, and it's the way that people choose to respond or react at times to either themselves being bullied or just not understanding the differences that they're experiencing in life, and that just charges a bully. So I have two instances I was going to speak of, one as a child and, believe it or not, as an adult.
Wow.
Adults still experience bullying from other adults. So as a child, the typical standard one is just children, being children. And I went to school, we rode the school bus, and it was just this bully. She would just, she would just bully all the kids on the bus. And I was quiet, not saying anything, like, as long as she's not bothering me, we're good. And then one day she decided to bother me. So that wasn't big. So I first went home and told my parents, which is first rule of thumb, always tell someone, older adult leader, get someone involved. But my mom's response was, okay, well, if it comes down to it, you better fight her or you're going to have to fight me. And I'm like, wait, what? I was 9 years old and you get this kind of advice. But I know what my mom would say, like, do not defend yourself and to do it properly. So like, okay. So she came the next day, kept going, went around 3 days. And sure enough, she picked the day, and it was just, I'm like, okay, Holy Spirit, like, what are we doing today, Lord? And she wouldn't ease up, and it had resulted in an assault, a fight, and it ended with her on the floor. And me
If
just
you know
like,
Miss Yolanda, that's not surprising.
not surprising. She's like, I hated to have to do this, but you brought it on yourself, was pretty much my attitude. And then after that, you would not believe, like within a year or so, her and I became friends, and only to find out after developing that friendship, there was just disarray in her home. There was just, discord left to right. I remember going home with her after school one day. I was like, we're going to play, whatever. And I could just feel the darkness. And it was just like, and I'm a child, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, this just does not feel comfortable. It was completely opposite of the environment I was growing up in. And I remember asking her, hey, you want to just come to my house? Like my dad's there. He's going to cook. My mom would be home, and made it good. And then we became friends. So, and then you fast forward to my adult life, and it happened at work one day, and you just felt like, I don't know if people understand, social alienation, that's a form of bullying
Yeah,
as well. And they were just like, I showed up, I'm on my peppy self. Hey, I'm Yolanda, on my first day, da-da, and immediately was shunned. Like, oh yeah, well, your desk is over there. And I'm like,
just pushed off.
yes. So I was like, what did I? And that was like really, because I'm like, hey, I'm bubbly, I'm nice, I'm fun. Everybody likes me.
You don't push off Miss Yolanda.
Right. And I was like, that really was a shocker for
Yeah.
me. And I was just like, wow, okay. Well, such is life, And shortly after that, I think I only lasted a week on that job. And then I was terminated,
Right.
Yeah. And I was just like, okay, bye,
Wow.
And so just to share both of those experiences is just, you may experience it now, maybe a kid. Don't be surprised if you experience it as an adult,
Yeah.
just in a different form,
Yeah.
But I feel those experiences, even with life, you go through things, it makes you better if you grow from it. And that's how I'm here today.
Yeah. And that's exactly what
Still
we're
good.
hoping to address, is how we respond to it, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, you were a kid, you were 9 years old, and you were also an adult. I would say probably 100% of the people watching this video have experienced bullying. I've experienced bullying. And so I think, it's a very common experience. And so as Christians, we need to know how to respond to it. We need to know, how do we navigate this? How do we confront it? How do we avoid, whatever? How do we, when we come in contact with this bullying, what do we do? Right. And so, I know you've, looked at some scriptures to share with us about bullying or how to deal with it. So what are some things that you've seen in the Bible that have helped you through this?
Yeah. I would say just, first of all, like the Bible doesn't specifically,
Sure.
pinpoint bullying, but it does speak about speaking negative words, things you're saying, your behaviors. It speaks to bully tendencies is what I
Right.
would call it,
Right.
And the Bible tells us that we are to respond in love. Love your neighbor as yourself, love your enemies. The one favorite one I love, when the Christians use, oh, you're supposed to turn the other cheek. I was like, that is not, I don't think that's what my Jesus meant. But in essence, it's really a personal slight to address. But in essence, it is, to respond in love. And I also love, I think it was in Nehemiah where it talks about, all right, listen, self-defense is not, a thing of just personal response or choice as well. But, you are to, these pointers I've always taken and then taught my children and my nieces and nephews is like, yes, first thing is you tell someone.
Yeah.
The first thing is not to just fight, or because
Sure.
there is underlining issues when it comes to
Yeah.
bullying. So, but it's like, get an adult involved, get a leader involved, someone in authority, your friends, figure it out. And then, the next option is to probably flee, if you can, to flee it or to avoid it. And if it's unavoidable, then you address it, and those are the principles that I've taught my kids and what I've learned in growing up. It's just, all right, it's here. What is this really about?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are the problems? And in the Bible, it tells us about getting understandings, right? So that was my principles I took from there, was just like, all right, address this in love. you know, and it is hard to love when someone is bullying you, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but I think it's not about like, oh, let's hug it out. It's more
Yeah.
about, having the mindset of Christ, like, okay, what would Jesus do in this
Mm.
moment? And it's
Mm.
just like, we are to be Christ-like in
Yeah.
anything that we're doing. So it's just like, listen, I don't really want to have to fight you, but if we have to, I will,
Yeah.
And when the adult situation happened, it was more of like, okay, I literally bowed out. It wasn't a fight. I wasn't trying to, rally and do all this stuff. Like, okay, I took it as, all right, Lord, I was here for a week and that's all you wanted me to do.
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah.
And really looking to Christ for the answers
Yeah.
and for the direction. And that's what I would encourage them to do.
Yeah.
It's just always looking to God,
Mm.
whether it's through prayer, whether it's through telling an adult, whether it's through, letting authorities know, letting your peers know, like, there's strength in numbers,
Yeah.
so, it's like, okay, let's figure out what it is. And someone has the answer.
Yeah.
Trust me,
Yeah.
they do.
Yeah. And I think that when we look at bullying, it can be so easy. And I've even heard some of our students, say this in conversations with us, like, like, well, like kind of feeling like a need to stand up for yourself,
Hmm.
like not to get walked on. And I think we can see it from both sides, right?
Yes.
If you look, like you said, look at Jesus, right? If we look at the
Hmm.
life of Jesus,
Hmm.
when he was confronted, and you could even say bullied by the
Bullied.
religious
He
leaders. I mean,
was.
you could
He
really
was
say
really
it.
bullied
You could
by the
really say it because
religious. Right.
it was
Which is a
it was
shame. That means there's
uncalled
bullying in
for.
church, right?
Exactly, exactly, right? It was
Right.
uncalled for. It was
Right.
unjust. It was untrue, and they're coming at him with these questions and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and
And
he doesn't.
accusatory things, like
Yeah,
accusing him of stuff.
yeah,
Like, okay.
and he knows that what they're saying is false.
Exactly.
And what's interesting, I like how Jesus responds is a lot of times his responses can be kind of intense, but
Hmm.
they're always truth. He
Yes.
always responds in
Responds
truth.
with truth.
And he still has love in his response because he
Exactly.
wants them to see the truth,
Right.
even if it is stern, right? And so
Yes.
it is okay to stand up for yourselves in
Hmm.
those ways. It's like, but what's your attitude behind it? Are you coming at it
Exactly.
with a hot head out of anger? Well,
Right.
maybe not. We shouldn't do that. Maybe we should walk away if you feel yourself getting angry.
Right.
But if you're able to respond in a level-headed, hey, this
Hmm.
is not okay.
Right.
What you're saying is not true. You
Right.
shouldn't be treating people this way.
Exactly.
That's okay to respond like that.
Exactly. And you hit it right on the head. Like it's okay to stand up for yourself in the right way,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. You don't, the Bible also teaches us don't do evil for evil, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, something evil is happening to me, but I can only control my response to the evil.
Yeah.
You can't really control the evil, but you can still be assertive. You can be strong,
Mm.
strong in your stance and having the biblical base,
Mhm.
response to it. So whether it's just like, listen, stop, this is not acceptable, and if you feel that it's not stopping, like I said, you tell someone, and
Yeah.
get others involved. There's ways to handle it, and not feel that you still are their doormat. I don't suggest that you just continue to take on the bullying,
Yeah.
but again, like you said, with level head, prayer is always important, to even pray about the situation, even pray for the person, because 9 times out of 10 they're probably have gone through or is going through something,
Mhm.
so that's what it's just like, wow, that's the part of loving your enemies.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm just gonna pray for him, pray for him,
Yeah.
and pray for a positive outcome,
Exactly. Yeah.
and that's how it happens, and it does matter. Christ matters,
Yeah.
and having that
Yeah.
Christ mindset really matters,
Yeah. It is
so.
really important.
And it's important to start, if you start the day in prayer and being led of the Lord,
Yes.
I'm telling you, you are equipped to handle what happens or pops
Right.
up during the day. You may not be prepared for a bully, but here it comes. Like, okay, Jesus, this is what we're doing today,
And the Holy Spirit can take over in
it
that
takes
moment.
over, literally. And like I could say in my own self, in my own flesh, how I would respond, would be like,
Yeah.
but in those moments, those were not my responses.
Yeah.
Even at the age of 9, and even as an adult. Like if someone would have put a, hey, this is the scenario. Someone's going to shun you when you get there. I'm like, oh, I'll let them know where to go and how to get there fast, But in the moment, that was not my response.
Yeah.
The Holy Spirit literally takes over when you literally surrender yourself to the Lord. And that's what I would always encourage students to do. Those of us
Yeah.
that are, Christians, Bible believers, those that, are people of the faith, pray.
Mhm.
Always start out your day with prayer, scripture, get strength, leave the house armored. When you do, you can
Yeah.
literally handle the moment, even surprises
Yeah.
when they come, you know.
Yeah, that's so true. And I was just thinking as you were talking, and one thing that I want to mention, because you talked about it earlier, and you talked about turning the other cheek, and I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times we hear that and we think like, well, Jesus is telling me that I need to be a doormat for people, or Jesus is telling
Right.
me that I need to let people walk on me, or when he
Mm-hmm.
says, if a soldier asks you to carry,
Mm-hmm.
his things 1 mile, carry it 2 miles.
Right,
Like,
right.
what is Jesus really saying? And that's why it's
Mm-hmm.
important when we look at those kind of things to look at it,
Mm-hmm.
what's the culture at the time. And one
Exactly.
thing that I learned in just recent years about the slapping in that culture,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if someone strikes you, right?
Right.
One interpretation of it, or one understanding of the history at the time, is that people, if they were to strike you, they would strike with their dominant hand. So me, I'm
Mm-hmm.
right-handed. I would strike with my right hand, and
Right.
you'd strike with the palm of your
Palm of
hand and
hand.
slap them across the face.
Right.
Well, when Jesus says turn the other cheek, he's saying,
Mm.
okay, you just got hit on the
Your
left
left side.
cheek, right?
Uh-huh.
So when you turn
To the
and
right.
offer
Mm-hmm.
the other cheek,
Uh-huh.
they now have to
Go
come back with the
backwards.
backhand. And
Mm-hmm.
in their culture, this kind of strike was
Mm.
permissible.
Right.
But striking somebody with the back of your hand was seen as degrading and
Grading.
disrespectful. And so
Yes.
now you're putting that person in a position of, fine, strike me again.
Mm-hmm.
You'll degrade yourself by striking me with the
Striking
back of
me.
your hand,
Exactly.
but do it. Go ahead, right?
Right.
And so it's almost like when you look at it in the culture of the
Mm-hmm.
time, it's almost like Jesus is telling them to say, try me.
Right.
Like, right?
Right.
That's
I
kind of the
agree.
similar attitude,
Right.
not fighting back,
Mm-mm.
but it's like,
Yeah.
go ahead, do it again.
Right.
Like
Right.
put
Taking that
yourself,
posture, like, go ahead,
make
try it.
yourself the lower person, right? If I'm
Exactly.
going to take the high road,
Right.
right? And sometimes that will just, sometimes that will dissipate the situation because they're
Right.
like, oh, that
Right.
was not the reaction I was expecting, right?
Exactly.
So it's not that
Exactly.
Jesus calls us to
Be
just
doormats.
lay ourselves at our bully's
Mm-hmm.
feet and say, fine, do whatever
You
you
want to
want.
be.
But it's
Yep.
like stand up for yourself,
Right.
but in a way that shows that it shows the way that you view yourself, that you view
Right.
yourself as worthy of respect and worthy
Exactly.
of
Mm-hmm.
not being struck, right?
Right.
And so that's an
Right.
interesting way
Right.
to view that.
Integrated. No, it is. It's such a twist. And it's so funny. Like that scripture for me required me a deep dive and try to understand because people will take it out of context and use it. Like,
Yeah.
you're just supposed to
Yeah.
be a bully. I
Yeah.
mean,
Just
be a
let it happen.
doormat.
Turn the other
Just
cheek.
turn it out to you.
Let them
Just
do it
walk
to you.
away.
Yep.
Jesus will handle them and all this. And my understanding, I'm like, I'm like, that is not happening. You get the first cheek, shame on you. You get the second cheek, shame on me, because I'm like, I'm still standing there. But that really wasn't the concept either, and I really had to understand it. It is just that. It's just that for them to hit you, by the other way with the back of the hand. Now they are degrading themselves, and
Yeah.
it's just like, and in that moment, it shows that whole act of bullying is degrading to you because
Mhm.
when you have onlookers looking, they're
Yeah.
not cheering the bully on. They're just
Yeah.
like, oh wow, how sad, how shame, how pitiful, how
Yeah.
and someone like myself, I would be standing for the underdog,
Yeah.
So what ends up happening indirectly is you start getting people rallied against you,
Yeah.
and that's another point. And it's just like, yeah, you better be careful,
Yeah.
So no, it is true that we are not to be doormats. God did not call us to be walked upon, and just lay down. Our only life we're supposed to lay down is for Jesus.
Yeah. That's right.
That's for him,
That's right.
not for those to bully us. So
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Know who God has created you to be. And yet at the same time, speak in truth, act in love, pray for
yes,
your enemies,
yes,
act in love towards your enemy, return good for evil. These are all
yeah,
things that Jesus said, but in no way does it mean, put yourself in a lower position than he is
exactly,
calling you to.
exactly.
So as we kind of wrap up here,
Mhm.
just what is to any students that maybe right now, like they are experiencing bullying, or maybe
Mhm.
they have a bully at
Right.
school, right?
Mhm.
What are just some last words of advice or
Mhm.
direction that you would give them?
I would kind of reiterate what I said before is first tell, pray and tell, and get others involved. Someone may know an answer, someone may be able to help diffuse the situation
Yeah.
for you, especially at school. Very important to get teachers involved, counselors involved, like it's very important to tell someone.
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
someone in authority, tell someone that can actually come and help the situation. I've seen that a lot. I used to substitute teach in the school systems, elementary through high school. And we would, in the elementary environment, it's tell a teacher, it's get someone involved. And sometimes that requires parents to come together
Yeah.
and meetings, and we all get an understanding and we walk away from it.
Yeah.
Sometimes in an older situation in high school, they don't really want to tell, but at the same token, telling your peers, letting so listen, I'm having a problem with this one, or I'm having a problem with that one. This is what we're facing with. Telling someone is very important. Speaking up, not keeping it to yourself, not cowering and figuring it out by yourself. It helps to get someone,
Yeah.
on your side. Definitely pray about it and definitely stand up, like you said, and speak truth. Don't stand for it.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes that may require in the moment that you do run or that you do flee. But then when you run, you flee, tell, because I feel your words have power, and understanding and knowing that
Yeah.
your words have power can equip you
Yeah.
to get out of the situation and
Yeah.
work on diffusing it.
Yeah. And I would say, adding on to the stepping
Mm-hmm.
up for yourself, or standing up for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
rather, standing up for others too. That's what we are
Oh,
called to do as Christians, right?
absolutely.
Stand up for the less privileged. Stand up for
Mm-hmm.
those who
Who
you
can't
see
stand for
being, but maybe
themselves.
you're not
Yeah.
being bullied, but you have people in your friend group, or someone in your class
Right.
who is always getting bullied.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with standing up for them.
I agree, 2000%, because I deem myself, I stand for what we call the underdog, right? Someone
Yeah.
that is being bullied. And I agree, say something, even if you
Yeah.
don't feel to step in, definitely say
Make
something.
it aware.
The awareness is key, because
Yeah.
a lot of times bullies do things in the dark, out of darkness, that's within them. So
Yeah.
a lot of times they'll corner you, they'll pin someone that, it's not seen. They're not going to bully someone right in the middle of, the school and see them. But, they do things where they're hiding corners and things of that nature. So exposure and, speaking out, awareness is key.
Yeah. It is.
And that
It
does
is.
help you. It equips you,
Yeah.
if nothing else, you do feel a bit empowered, because a lot of times in that moment, there's fear that grips you if you're the one being bullied. So sometimes knowing that someone else knows, and then that person is there, it does give you a little sense of empowerment.
Right.
Like, okay, I'm not alone in this. I do have someone,
Yeah.
so bringing awareness is probably my top key component,
Yeah.
that I would say too.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for all that you shared with us today. Thank you for guiding us through this discussion on bullying and how we can
Mhm.
respond to it as Christians. We really enjoyed having you on, and I know our
Thank
students
you.
were privileged to get to hear from you. Students, thank you for watching. Make sure that
Thank
you
you.
like, if you made it through the video all the way. Leave a comment with maybe a question that you have, or just something you enjoyed from the video. Make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss out each week when we post, and we can't wait to see you here next week for another video.